The wind howling across the desolate, muddy expanse of Coyote Pass carries with it the ghosts of a fractured empire, a multi-million-dollar dream that has mutated into a suffocating financial graveyard. For over a decade, we watched the Brown family architect a carefully curated facade of plural harmony. But beneath the forced smiles and chaotic relocations lay a labyrinthine shell game of parasitic financial abuse, silent betrayals, and devastating emotional warfare. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on the total collapse of Kody Brown's patriarchal pyramid scheme, exposing the Machiavellian legal maneuvers, the offshore whispers, and the unprecedented rebellion of the original three wives who are finally coming to collect every single penny they are owed. What you are about to hear is the untold autopsy of reality television's most tragic implosion, a story of staggering greed and the ultimate revenge. Before we dive into the dark depths of this family's total ruination, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel right now, because the revelations we are uncovering today are going to change everything you thought you knew about the Sister Wives universe. Coyote Pass was never meant to be a sanctuary for a united family. It was an isolation tactic, a barren stretch of Arizona dirt weaponized to drain the resources of three independent women in order to fund the extravagant delusions of one man and his favored wife. If you stand on that empty land today, you do not see the foundations of four sprawling homes. You see the physical manifestation of Janelle, Meri, and Christine's stolen futures. The pine trees cast long, cold shadows over unexcavated dirt, a haunting reminder of the balloon payments and crushing tax liens that now threaten to plunge Kody and Robyn into absolute, inescapable bankruptcy. For years, the family pot was treated as Kody's personal slush fund, a bottomless reservoir continuously replenished by the grueling hustle of the original wives, only to be secretly siphoned away to sustain a lifestyle of hidden luxury on the hill. High above the muddy pits of Coyote Pass sits Robyn's million-dollar mansion, a heavily guarded fortress bursting at the seams with expensive art, overflowing delivery boxes, and hoarded assets, completely insulated from the financial starvation happening just down the mountain. This was not a marriage of equals. It was a systemic draining of resources, a calculated extraction of wealth disguised as religious devotion. Janelle Brown, the undisputed financial architect of the family, spent decades managing the spreadsheets, stretching every dollar, and sacrificing her own comfort for the greater good of the collective. Picture her sitting alone in the cramped, freezing confines of a tiny recreational vehicle parked on that barren land, the glare of a laptop screen illuminating her face in the dead of night. This was the moment the illusion shattered forever. As she meticulously tracked the vanishing funds, the terrifying reality of their financial situation came into agonizing focus. The money from the Las Vegas home sales, the TLC syndication checks, the multi-level marketing profits brought in by Meri and Christine. It was all evaporating into a black hole of Kody and Robyn's mounting debts and relentless spending. Janelle realized with cold, terrifying clarity that she had financed her own erasure. She had poured her entire life's earnings into an estate she did not control, effectively left with nothing but a depreciating trailer and a mountain of empty promises. The loyalty she had blindly offered Kody for nearly 30 years curdled into a cold, calculated fury. Janelle did not weep. She weaponized her intellect. The quiet, methodical preparation for war began in the shadows, far away from the invasive glare of the TLC cameras. Janelle reached across the shattered divide to Christine, the woman who had already broken the psychological chains of Kody's emotional prison. Christine's escape to Utah was not merely a physical relocation. It was the ultimate act of defiance that proved the patriarch could be bled of his power. Together, they began to perform a forensic autopsy on the family's entangled finances. Whispers of forensic accountants being quietly retained began to echo through the inner circles of the reality TV world. They started digging through years of convoluted LLC structures, murky property deeds, and questionable transfers of cash that Kody had allegedly funneled into Robyn's name under the guise of family management. The original three wives, once pitted against each other in a desperate Hunger Games for Kody's fleeting affection, were now forged into an unbreakable alliance of vengeance. They were, No longer sister wives. They were creditors, and they were coming to collect. Kody's increasingly unhinged behavior over the last few years, the red-faced screaming matches, the terrifying monologues about knives in the kidneys, were never truly about a broken heart. You have to watch those moments through the lens of a man whose financial life support is being aggressively unplugged. His rage is not born of romantic sorrow. It is the absolute panic of a cornered predator realizing his prey has evolved. When Christine packed her boxes and took her income with her, it wasn't just a blow to his ego. It was a massive, structural collapse to his delicate financial ecosystem. Without the continuous influx of cash from the original wives, Kody and Robyn are drowning under the weight of a mortgage they cannot afford, land they cannot develop, and a lifestyle they violently refuse to downgrade. Kody demanded blind obedience and unquestioning loyalty, not out of spiritual leadership, but because dissent meant an audit. He needed them isolated, insecure, and desperate for his approval, so they would never dare question where the money was actually going. But the uprising was not limited to the scorned wives. It violently bled into the next generation, sparking a generational rebellion that would finally sever the Brown family tree at its roots. The adult children, who had spent their entire formative years subjected to the instability, the constant moving, and the emotional neglect of a father whose attention was entirely consumed by Robyn's offspring, were no longer silent bystanders. They grew up. They gained access to the internet. They watched the footage of their own childhoods and realized the horrifying extent of the manipulation their mothers had endured. A massive, impenetrable digital fortress was constructed behind Kody's back. A massive sibling group chat, explicitly excluding Kody, Robyn, and Robyn's children. Within this encrypted digital space, the Brown children began comparing notes, validating each other's trauma, and piecing together the timeline of their father's abandonment. This was the ultimate destruction of Kody's legacy. He had spent his entire adult life desperately trying to cultivate the image of a virile, respected patriarch leading a sprawling tribe of adoring disciples. Instead, he manufactured an army of articulate, fiercely independent adults who harbor a deep collective resentment toward him. The children recognized that they were merely props in Kody's grand theatrical production of plural marriage, discarded the moment they developed autonomy, and demanded basic respect. When Kody weaponized the global pandemic, laying down draconian, impossible rules that conveniently forced him to quarantine exclusively in the luxurious comforts of Robyn's mansion, he irrevocably destroyed his relationship with his sons. He demanded that Janelle kick her boys out into the streets during a time of global crisis, prioritizing his own comfort over his children's survival. That was the point of no return. The sibling alliance rallied behind their mothers with a ferocious, protective intensity. Sons who had once idolized their father now openly mock his hypocrisy. Daughters who had once craved his validation now build their entire identities around their mother's survival. The financial war the mothers are waging is being fiercely supported by the children, some of whom are allegedly helping to navigate legal loopholes, crowdsourcing public support, and threatening to break their own non-disclosure agreements to expose the toxic underbelly of the Coyote Pass empire. Kody is now entirely cut off, socially, emotionally, and financially. Trapped in a sprawling house on a hill with a wife who is rapidly realizing that the prize she fought so ruthlessly to win is entirely bankrupt. As the walls close in, the desperation in Kody's camp has reached a fever pitch. Rumors are swirling that he is furiously trying to liquidate assets, frantically searching for buyers for the toxic, undeveloped dirt of Coyote Pass before the banks can swoop in and foreclose. But Janelle is standing in the way. She holds the legal leverage, her name etched onto the deeds of the very land Kody desperately needs to sell. She refuses to sign away her rights, locking Kody in a suffocating legal stalemate. The power dynamic has violently shifted. The man who once sat at the head of the table, dictating the emotional and financial terms of 4 different households, is now begging for a signature from the woman he left to freeze in an RV. The poetic justice is intoxicating, a brutal masterclass in patience and calculated retribution. The atmosphere around Flagstaff is thick with impending ruin. Every movement Kody is scrutinized, every financial transfer traced. The network cameras may capture the staged conversations and the carefully rehearsed tears. But the real bloodbath is happening behind closed doors, in the sterile offices of divorce attorneys and forensic financial investigators. The original three wives are building their own empires from the ashes of Kody's delusions. They are writing their own narratives, securing their own brand deals, and hoarding their own wealth, completely untouchable by Kody's desperate, grasping hands. He is watching the women he believed he owned ascend to levels of public adoration and financial stability he can now only dream of. The tension is a taut wire ready to snap. Late one evening, a sleek black car pulls up to the gated entrance of Robyn's heavily mortgaged fortress. A process server steps out into the freezing Arizona night, clutching a thick manila envelope containing the culmination of months of silent, aggressive legal preparation. The documents inside are not just a demand for repayment. They are a declaration of total financial war, an unyielding mandate that every single misappropriated dollar, every drained account, and every broken promise be accounted for. The porch light flickers on. The heavy wooden door slowly creaks open, and Kody stands there, the arrogant sneer completely erased from his face, replaced by the hollow, sinking realization that his empire is dead, and the women he destroyed are here to collect the ashes. The heavy thud of the mahogany door slamming shut against the freezing Flagstaff night sends a violent tremor through the cavernous, cluttered halls of Robyn's mansion, signaling the definitive end of Kody Brown's unchallenged reign. He stands alone in the dimly lit foyer, the manila envelope heavy in his trembling hands, its contents a lethal cocktail of forensic financial audits, asset freezes, and ruthless legal ultimatums meticulously drafted by the high-powered attorneys of the women he discarded. The air inside the house is thick, claustrophobic, and suffocatingly silent, a stark contrast to the sprawling, empty acres of Coyote Pass just down the mountain. As he walks deeper into the fortress, the physical manifestation of his catastrophic financial mismanagement surrounds him. The walls are lined with exorbitantly expensive, absurdly out-of-touch artwork. Countertops vanish beneath mountains of unopened delivery boxes, discarded QVC purchases, and the eerie, glassy-eyed stares of thousands of porcelain figurines. This is the gilded cage that Janelle's drained retirement accounts and Meri's relentless LuLaRoe hustle paid for. This is the labyrinth of hoarded wealth that Kody prioritized over the basic survival of his own flesh and blood. Robyn, the alleged mastermind behind this parasitic extraction of family resources, watches him from the top of the stairs, her perpetual mask of victimhood momentarily slipping to reveal the raw, unadulterated terror of a woman realizing her human shield is finally cracking. Under pressure. For over a decade, she successfully played the role of the weeping peacemaker, manipulating the deeply ingrained religious guilt of the original three wives to secure her position as the legal, financial, and emotional epicenter of the family. But the tears that once commanded Kody's absolute, blind loyalty holds no currency in a court of law. The forensic accountants tearing through the family's labyrinthine LLCs do not care about her manufactured panic attacks or her endless, self-serving soliloquies about plural marriage. They only care about the paper trail, and the paper trail allegedly paints a devastating portrait of systemic embezzlement, exposing how Kody secretly funneled communal TLC paychecks and the proceeds from the Las Vegas home sales directly into Robyn's private accounts, while leaving Janelle to quite literally wash her dishes in a plastic bucket inside an uninsulated recreational vehicle. The absolute audacity of this financial betrayal goes far beyond mere greed. It is a profound psychological violence, a calculated attempt to break the independence of women who trusted him with their lives. But Kody wildly underestimated the dormant, terrifying strength of the women he attempted to financially starve. By forcing Janelle to the absolute brink, by pushing Christine to a place of total emotional apathy, and by finally snapping Meri out of her decade-long trance of desperate loyalty, he inadvertently created a merciless, three-headed hydra of legal retribution. They are no longer begging for scraps of his time. They are legally demanding the liquidation of his entire artificial reality. As the financial noose tightens around Kody and Robyn's necks, An equally devastating, entirely separate war is being waged on the digital front by the every child Kody so ruthlessly abandoned. Far away from the suffocating paranoia of the Flagstaff mansion, a massive, impenetrable digital insurgency has taken root. The infamous sibling group chat, a sprawling, highly active network containing over a dozen of the Brown family offspring, has evolved from a simple text thread into a heavily fortified emotional bunker. This digital sanctuary was forged in the fires of their collective trauma, a space completely inaccessible to Kody, Robyn, and Robyn's older children, who have been effectively exiled from the wider family unit. Within these encrypted borders, the adult children have meticulously dismantled every single lie their father ever told them. They share screenshots, they validate each other's lived experiences, and they aggressively mock the megalomaniacal delusions of the man who demanded they worship him while refusing to pick up the phone to call them on their birthdays. The leaks pouring out from this generational rebellion are nothing short of catastrophic for Kody's fragile ego. Insiders close to the family allege that Kody is consumed by a paranoid, seething rage, frantically trying to hunt down the source of the leaks, going so far as to allegedly threaten his own biological children with punitive non-disclosure agreements. He views their independence not as a success of parenting, but as a treasonous act of insubordination. But the children are entirely unafraid. Peyton's thinly veiled, mocking social media posts, Gwendolyn's unapologetic, surgical dismantling of her father's character on public platforms, and Logan's cold, absolute refusal to engage with Kody's manufactured drama are all synchronized strikes against the patriarch's crumbling empire. They have watched the footage of Kody demanding that Gabriel and Garrison be thrown out of their own home during a global pandemic. They have witnessed the visceral, heart-wrenching pain on their mothers' faces as Kody continuously chose the comfort of Robyn's fireside over the mental health of his own sons. The betrayal was so absolute, so cruelly executed under the guise of fake COVID-19 protocols, that it permanently severed the biological tethers of fatherhood. Kody is no longer viewed as a parent by the majority of his offspring. He is viewed as a toxic, radioactive liability to be managed, pitied, and ultimately completely excised from their lives. The tragedy of this generational divide is further compounded by the heartbreaking, engineered isolation of Robyn's children, Dayton, Aurora, and Brianna. While the original three's children are experiencing a renaissance of healing, traveling the country together, celebrating holidays in massive, joyous gatherings with Christine's new husband, David, Robyn's children remain locked inside the dark, oppressive atmosphere of the Flagstaff mansion. Sources whisper that Robyn has engaged in a relentless campaign of psychological alienation, convincing her children that the rest of the family inherently hates them, framing herself and her offspring as the perpetual, tragic victims of the OG3's jealousy. This calculated brainwashing has created a permanent, tragic wall between the siblings. Aurora's highly publicized panic attacks and the pervasive, suffocating anxiety that seems to grip Robyn's household are the direct collateral damage of living in a state of constant, manufactured warfare. Robyn uses her children's distress as a human shield, weaponizing their anxiety to keep Kody entirely focused on protecting her, thereby ensuring he remains fundamentally alienated from the rest of his family. It is a masterclass in covert narcissistic manipulation, but it is a strategy that has ultimately trapped them all in a hell of their own making. Kody is now a prisoner of the very environment he destroyed his entire family to build, surrounded by mountains of meaningless material possessions, suffocated by Robyn's relentless neediness, and haunted by the deafening silence of the children who walked away and never looked back. The profound extent of Kody's excommunication was put on brutal public display during a recent, highly publicized family gathering, a moment that insiders can become today the claim completely shattered what was left of Kody's psyche. According to leaked reports from within the reality television production bubble, Kody allegedly attempted to assert dominance by showing up uninvited to a neutral location where several of the older boys and Christine's new, sprawling extended family were gathered. He strode in with the arrogant, chest-puffed swagger of a man expecting the waters to part, expecting his sons to cower and his ex-wives to defer to his presence. Instead, he walked into a wall of absolute, chilling indifference. The older boys, now grown men with careers, spouses, and lives, entirely decoupled from TLC's payroll, did not yell. They did not argue. They simply turned their backs. They formed a literal, physical barricade around their mothers, completely ignoring Kody's attempts to initiate confrontation. Christine's new husband, David, a man who has seamlessly stepped into the role of the steady, unconditionally loving patriarch that Kody never was, allegedly locked eyes with Kody, offering nothing but a look of quiet, unbothered pity. It was a staggering, humiliating defeat. Kody was forced to realize in that agonizing moment that he possessed zero power. He could not yell them into submission. He could not withhold his affection as punishment because they no longer desired his affection. The currency of his love had completely hyperinflated, rendering it entirely worthless. He was just a loud, desperately insecure stranger, standing in a room full of people who had profoundly outgrown him. He stormed out of the venue in a blind rage, peeling out of the parking lot and retreating back to the only woman left who will pretend he is a king. But even Robyn's sycophantic devotion is allegedly beginning to rot under the crushing weight of their impending financial doom. The illusion of their grand romance was predicated on the limitless availability of other people's money. With Janelle's aggressive legal maneuvers freezing the assets tied to Coyote Pass and Christine's income entirely removed from the family pot, the reality their lifestyle is crashing down with terrifying speed. Robyn is not a woman built for poverty. The whispers of her catastrophic credit card debt, her alleged addiction to high-end retail therapy, and her complete inability to generate her own income are colliding violently with Kody's desperate need to liquidate assets. The arguments inside the mansion are rumored to be apocalyptic, echoing through the halls as Kody realizes that the obedient, perfect wife he destroyed his family for is actually an anchor, dragging him directly to the bottom of the ocean. He is trapped in a multi-million-dollar mortgage with a woman who demands luxury, while the very women who funded that luxury are preparing to drag him into a public courtroom to strip him down to his last dime. And just as Kody realizes the absolute hopelessness of his financial and marital trap, his phone screen lights up in the darkness of his cluttered living room, illuminating a single, devastating notification from a number he hasn't heard from in months, delivering a message so ruthlessly final that it will bring him to his knees. The message glowing in the cold blue light of his phone screen is short, brutal, and utterly devoid of the emotion he spent years manipulating. It is a collective statement from his adult children, a digital boundary line drawn in permanent ink that effectively reads, "You chose her, now live with the silence." With that single final notification, the psychological thread Kody used to pull his family back into his orbit has been cleanly severed. The text message reportedly details a complete and total boycott of Kody and Robyn from every major milestone, wedding, birth, and holiday moving forward. A collective agreement that any communication from this point on will be routed through legal representation. Kody is left staring at a blank screen. A man who built a kingdom on the backs of 3 devoted women and a dozen loyal children, only to find himself entirely alone in an over-mortgaged fortress of hoarded collectibles. This is the cataclysmic climax of the Brown family collapse, a tragic post-mortem of a plural family that traded its soul for reality television fame and a favored wife's insatiable greed. As the emotional door slammed shut, the final, lethal legal trap was sprung by Janelle, Christine, and Meri, who have reportedly pooled their resources for a devastating coordinated financial strike. The forensic audit of the family's entangled accounts has allegedly unearthed a shocking paper trail of systemic financial redirection. Investigators have reportedly discovered that massive portions of the communal family pot, funds specifically earmarked for the development of Coyote Pass and the tax obligations of the individual wives, were systematically funneled into a private LLC controlled exclusively by Kody and Robyn. This paper trail allegedly shows that while Janelle was living in a trailer and Meri was struggling to pay for her bed and breakfast in Utah, family money was being used to pay off Robyn's immense pre-existing credit card debts and finance luxury vacations, expensive jewelry, and high-end home decor. The legal implications of these findings are absolutely ruinous for Kody. In a partnership structure like a plural marriage, even one not fully recognized by the day, the state, the commingling and misappropriation of joint funds can be prosecuted as civil fraud and breach of fiduciary duty. Janelle and Meri are no longer playing nice. They are allegedly preparing to file a massive, multi-million-dollar lawsuit that could force a court-ordered liquidation of the Coyote Pass properties and, most terrifyingly for Robyn, the foreclosure of her precious mansion on the hill. Meri Brown, the woman who spent a decade lingering in the painful, humiliating margins of Kody's life, has emerged as the ultimate wild card in this financial execution. For years, she was ridiculed for her stubborn refusal to leave, her desperate hope that Kody would offer her a crumb of his affection. But her patience was not a weakness. It was a gathering of data. Meri kept receipts. She meticulously documented every single financial contribution she made to the family, every check she handed over to Kody, and every promise that was broken. Now fully awake to the psychological warfare she was subjected to, Meri has joined forces with Janelle and Christine, bringing her formidable financial records to the legal table. The three original wives, once divided by jealousy and Kody's deliberate orchestration of domestic conflict, have united under a single shared purpose: absolute, uncompromising justice. They are stripping away the myths Kody spent a lifetime constructing, exposing him to the world as a failed patriarch and a financially bankrupt husband. The future for Kody and Robyn is bleak, isolated, and rapidly decaying. The TLC gravy train, which funded their extravagant lifestyle and kept their mounting debts at bay, is quietly pulling out of the station. Network executives are acutely aware that the audience's sympathy lies entirely with the thriving, independent lives of the OG3. A reality show called Sister Wives cannot exist when there is only one wife left, especially when that remaining couple is widely reviled by the viewer base. Rumors are circulating that TLC is actively developing spin-off concepts focused entirely on Christine and Janelle's new chapters, leaving Kody and Robyn facing the terrifying prospect of a future without television cameras, without TLC paychecks, and without the public platform Kody used to feed his monstrous ego. Without the show's income, the house of cards will collapse completely. Robyn will be forced to confront the reality of a husband who has lost his wealth, his status, and his family, while Kody will be left to contemplate the absolute ruin of his legacy. He wanted to be a king, but he ended up a prisoner in an empty castle, surrounded by porcelain figurines and the deafening echo of his own voice. This is the ultimate poetic tragedy of the Brown family. Coyote Pass, the land that was supposed to represent the eternal unity of their family, stands as a barren monument to their destruction. The wind still sweeps across the empty dirt, rustling the pines where children were supposed to play and homes were supposed to rise. It is a cautionary tale of what happens when greed, manipulation, and unchecked patriarchy are allowed to rot the foundations of a family. But out of that scorched earth, Janelle, Christine, and Meri have risen, stronger, wealthier, and more at peace than they have ever been in their entire lives. They have reclaimed their power, their children, and their futures, leaving Kody and Robyn to drown in the very pool of toxicity they spent decades creating. The war is over, the verdict is in, and the crown has been permanently shattered. Now, we want to hear from you, the community that has watched this tragic saga unfold from the very beginning. What do you think was the exact moment of no return for Kody? Was it the financial betrayal, the abandonment of his children during the pandemic, or his absolute blind spot for Robyn's manipulation? Do you think Janelle and Meri should take Kody to court and strip him of the mansion? Or is his current isolation punishment enough? Sound off in the comments below, share your theories, and let's keep this conversation going. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another deep dive investigation into the hidden truths of reality television. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next chapter.